All right, so Nikita's here. Excellent. That great. One second, gotta get my settings right. Always a weekly thing. Make sure I'm doing this right. Okay. Oop. I think by now I would know how to use OBS, but clearly I don't. It's alright. Alright, we're in business. So, welcome to CG Spectrum's illustration block. My name is Eric Wilkerson. I am one of the instructors here at CG Spectrum. And for the next 2 hours, I am going to be doing a new portrait demo. Another portrait demo? You don't paint anything else? I'm sorry, you know. It is what it is. So this week I had posted in the general DigiPaint section of Slack for students to grab the reference images that I'm using this week, which are this guy, and so I have this head in two different color lighting schemes. I didn't try to set up anything more dramatic than this. So I give the students the option of warm or cool lighting hitting the face of a cyborg robot thing that the skin is peeling off of the face and exposing the mechanical, the metal, and all that stuff underneath. So this reference is actually from a about 3.5 inch tall maquette clay sculpture that I made for a painting several years ago. Just been sitting on my shelf collecting dust. So what's cool in this photograph of it is that all of that stuff that looks like hair is all just dust. It's like he's got stubble growing out of the top of his head. It's just a dirty basement. Anyway, so I'm thinking that I'm going to play with the warm lighting version of this. Students can choose whichever one they want, but this is how I'm going to get down. And start off by taking this reference and bringing it into my working file. Should probably save this. Started by saving it. So I'm always debating every time I do one of these Twitch streams how far to go, how much work to actually put in to the portrait versus what I would typically do for an illustration. But I guess that for the purposes of this being some kind of educational slash edutainment type thing, I don't want to labor over the line drawing and all that stuff. So I'm going to try to just treat this as if a rotting cyborg is in a life drawing class, life painting class, and it is dripping and oozing and tweaking and sparking off and all kinds of stuff. It's in pain, but it is posing for our 2-hour life painting class. So I better just paint this thing, as much of it as I possibly can, before it shuts off and deactivates. So, hello to those of you that are with me, watching along, and that join me. I look forward to seeing what some of you might do with this, if you decide to do it at all. You can do the entire thing. You can do a close-up of the face, of the eye, whatever. Okay. Probably just focus on the face. Well, I mean, that's really all there is, so. Only use for this stream. We'll go from there. Hope everyone is doing okay. Washing your hands and all that. Settings right. And I'll just start off by blocking in. I have more fun just keeping these casual and treating them more like studies than me trying to over render and get into like crazy amounts of detail. Just keep it brushy, as if it's a portrait study. So anyway. So if anybody has any art related questions while I'm working, feel free to dive in, but otherwise I am going to just get started. And there's already notes. Sitting way in the back of class because I don't need to outrun just the artist in front of me. Trip somebody over, you know, take out a kneecap. That's how you slow down the zombies. We all know that. So laggy, and that's not on my end, man. I don't know. You know, maybe turn your system off and turn it back on, I guess. Looks like somebody installed a CD player into his head and made him listen to Megadeth. That's a possibility. That is a strong possibility. You're asking, is there lag for you when you're painting, or is it just OBS? It might be OBS, or it might be your system. I'm not experiencing any lag on my computer, So, I mean, it's probably a bandwidth issue. I don't know if you're watching this on your phone or your Wi-Fi or, 5G, whatever. So, uh, but it's being recorded, so you'll be able to watch it. You should be able to watch it uh, in its entirety at some point. You're having too many issues. Always come back later. The model, the model reference, the model for this sculpture that I did was a dear friend of mine that to work for IBM, passed away a few years after, maybe a year after I painted this portrait of him with a rotting robot skull. Um, but he was very blown away by it. He was very honored to be in somebody's art, and like nobody had ever asked him to. Nobody had ever asked draw or asked him to pose for a drawing or a painting or anything like that. He thought that was pretty cool. Now, like I usually do, I try to start off with a little bit of an underdrawing. I don't want to get too meticulous about this part of it. I want to dive into really taking my time to paint this thing, or as much of it as I can during the time that we have together. So a lot of it will kind of be like just balling it. So, Piggy, you're saying you've experienced lag while you're painting in Photoshop. That's yeah. Whenever you have issues like that, it's usually a RAM issue. Um, and like if I have problems like that while I'm teaching a class, uh, my first instinct is to just shut off any non-essential app, program, anything running in the background while I'm working. Uh, so so since this was a reference maquette and not an actual photo reference, some of the anatomy even on my reference is might be a little off, funky. So you're painting this at home and you're going, his nose wouldn't be that big. His eyes are out of proportion. Guy doesn't know what he's doing. just know that it was a reference sculpture. Okay, we're not looking at, obviously not looking at a face with plastic prosthetic things glued to him. And so when it comes to the lips and all that, that's where I had the actual reference, photo reference for of my friend. And a lot of this was the lighting for the mouth, and body parts, and all that. But I really wanted to get into painting this really juicy eye. And if this is grossing anybody out, I'm very sorry. Sorry for your squeamishness and not being cool enough to hang with the cool kids. Walk in. This is where I'll probably start to mess around with the actual eye socket, robotic stuff, cheekbone, that. P Jiggy, and I need to focus. P Jiggy, you're saying you're almost done building your new laptop with 128 gigs of RAM. Never be a problem again. I'm excited, by the way. It's PG. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, yeah. I thought it said Piggy for. All right, I know. I gotcha. You were here last week. Great, cool. Welcome back. I think I've painted this same skull, same little robot skull, a couple of times now. It's always great when you have reference you can use for stuff like this. When it comes to doing an illustration of something that doesn't exist, this is what I like to refer to with my students in my advanced illustration class. I refer to this as the no guesswork zone. So I know what a human skull with robotic implants would look like because I'm staring right at it. I'm not guessing. I'm not just scrolling through images of the Terminator and trying to find the right angle, then trying not to make it look like Arnold's face. I actually had to build this reference. Now, whether you do that a 3D app like ZBrush or Blender, or in real clay with polymer clay or wet clay or monster clay or whatever, having that light and color value information is so absolutely giving a sense of real. I think I've got enough started. So, work layer. Try to always name your layers. For God's sakes, name your layers. There's nothing worse than opening up plenty of things, but one of the pet peeves is opening up a Photoshop file that just has like 90 layers. You want to grab the figure, you want to grab something in the background, and you don't know where it is because it just says layer 90, layer 50. Ask the student, well, what layer is the figure on? Layer 36, I think. Oh my goodness. So just for your own professional purposes, just get into a habit of naming that. You can. You're rocking and rolling, heat of doing stuff. Zach. Nikita, you're turning yours into a woman. That's fantastic. Only 90 layers must be. Yeah, there's some people out there going, "Oh, I have 90 grouped folders with like 10 layers each." Amateur. Yeah, I don't think I don't think my computer is nearly as fast as what Jiggy is trying to put together. Uh, I've got a I've got the bare bones. I don't even think mine's like 100 gigs. It's probably somewhere around 64 or something. Arcade. It gets the job done. So so my thing is I'm just challenging myself by not color picking from the photo. So I'm just gonna wing it. Start. saying, all right, what you are doing now is the part I need to pay attention to. Yeah, I'm not. I'm trying not to color pick directly from the photo reference. This is something that it would take me longer to explain the process of how I do it, but I'm just trying to make sure my values are correct. So if you see me like picking or using the eyedropper and then going back into the photo to pick my color picking the value, so I'm seeing that the value of this is 45% gray, so it's somewhere between a value 4 and a value 5 gray. So that lets me know that the corresponding reds and yellows that I have here need to be, for the face that I'm doing, need to be in that value 4 to value 5 range. So all around his face. I mean, it's, again, it's anal, but I choose not to color pick from the. I want to. I just want to do it this way. And like we're looking at the eye here, the rendering of the eye or the color on the eye, and like that value, that color in the shadow or the cool side of the eye, it looks purplish, like a bluish, coolish purple hue. But then you lay it down and it's really just gray. It's just a cool gray, and I can come into that understanding and cool color around that. It's fun stuff. I squint a lot while I'm while I'm just trying to block in pretty broad shapes, colors. Now, one way that you can also do this isn't the only way, obviously. This is just my over analytical way of doing it, just for folks at home. But I could have started with the line, and then I have the base value here, which I can now let the darkest darks of that background show through, so that I could work at a lower opacity and have those darker values shine through as I'm painting. Like, you see how thin the color is in that forehead here, how it gets, like, it feels solid now, but that's that gray shining through. I could have just taken a line, created a layer underneath and just attacked it like this and come in. Kind of makes sense to do that, but no, stupid. But you could just block it in like this and keep on going, or you can treat it like a real painting, where you're drawing putting your line work down and then painting directly over top of it, quickly as possible. It's up to you. I know that there are probably students that are going to blaze through this much faster because they are doing their comfort zone process. For me, I am enjoying the process of just treating this like painting it for real. So fact, just for the sake of time, I think I will back it. Not like this. Something like this, a quick block-in like this is it's good for, you know, establishing your basic colors and values, and then you can go over top of it with more opaque color. Absolutely. way you found that blue under the skin and blended it in is incredible. I'm adding that to my yeah. So it's like playing with that warm cool relationship. That's what the photo reference is really all about there. Um, so seeing that color, that hue change, and that color transition from light, from the cool light to the warm light. Like there's cool shadows, and then there's that warm highlight hitting his forehead. But then there's all of these transitional oranges and purples and magenta colors, and like getting that all in, um, lock it in one pass, then it's fantastic. Um, but I don't know, like P Jiggy, like one thing you can like kind of start to mix your colors as you go. Um, I recommend it, especially for you, Nikita. Like if you're trying to get a certain palette going, uh, for your face, name these layers. Um, you know, it if you turn on the color dynamics like we talked about in class, like you could take that red and you could take this blue, and then you can just feather them together and lighten it up, and then that's going to give you your purple. It's just going to mix it right there on your palette, right? So full opacity, and you're going to get that color change, and somewhere in there is that color that I need for his forehead. So it's just satisfying way of pulling it all together. And I'm breaking one of my own rules. I should be going from, as I build this up, it's kind of just attacking it without following. So Nikita, you were talking about like why do your portraits look dead? Like, I know portrait painters, professional portrait painters that get paid a lot of money to paint somebody's face, and even when they are sitting in front of the model and painting them from life, they still get an end product that looks dead and lifeless. And it's almost like they had the likeness, and then they kept rendering and rendering and rendering, and at some point the model, their face shifted, or their face drooped, or they got bored. You know, the model's starting to drift off or nod off, and they're not really holding the pose anymore or anything. And at that exact moment, when the model just doesn't care anymore, and they're thinking about their tax returns or something like that, and they have this lifeless, dead expression on their face, bang! That's when that portrait painter has nailed the likeness. So everything looks like, so his entire portfolio looks like everybody's constipated, worried about something. But they're beautiful. They're beautifully done. Like caked on highlights and all. Everybody looks, they're miserable. I don't know. What do I know? Nobody's paying me, 5 figures to do an oil portrait. So, why now? Maybe that's what they wanted. chunky, wet, specular highlights. The name of the game. It doesn't really all come together until you put those final cool highlights on something. That's just so for any of my students or anybody that is currently taking the intro course and concept art and just got finished doing the value exercises where you asked to do the cylinder and the ball exercise. There it is. There's your ball exercise. There's the cylinder. Highlight, transitioning from the light to the shadow, reflect the light in the shadow, and then it rolls into darkness, soft edges, all that stuff. But I applied that lesson to painting an eye. Okay? Everything that we cover in that course can be applied to digital portraiture, can whatever it is that you decide to paint. It's just about understanding, having a solid grasp of color, value, control. The great thing about establishing your marks, like this might look like a complete mess to somebody just starting, just watching me do this right now, but a lot of the values, a lot of the colors that I'm going to be using throughout the entire face are now in here. My values should be pretty consistent to what's in the photograph right now. You know, plus or minus some highlights, but it started off with that groundwork. Started doing by laying in those initial marks, mixing my palette here, my oranges, my cools, and building that up over a gray tone background. So a lot of that, you see how much the background does for that. A lot of that is translucent color, but turn that background back on, it shows through that brushwork. So I don't know, I wouldn't call it a cheat, but it helps expedite the painting when I don't have to worry about painting every single thing to a certain level of finish. Just let the background. This might end up being a 2-week project or something. I finish up stream. One of my favorite portrait painters, the guy whose name I can't remember right now because he's my favorite portrait painter. How it works. but he starts off a portrait. He'll draw out the entire thing and then just painstakingly render as he goes. He doesn't like block out the entire thing the way some schools of painting might teach you. He'll sit there and render the eye, then render the nose and the other eye and then the lips and the cheeks, and before you know it, poof, he's done. A lot of respect for that. I've tried that in the past, but kind of fall into your old habits where you gotta block stuff in, colors and all that stuff, values, instead of just going from a toned or just a white surface to then full-blown rendered eye. Everything else still lined, but I feel weird to do that. That is just the sign of somebody that been doing it for a long time, and they don't need to build it up. They can build it up any way they want at that point. You know, they can start off with a nostril, rendering the nose if they wanted to, just work their way out because they have understanding color and all. So, who do we have? Who do we have with us today? Where are you from? Shout out your country, your state, wherever you're watching the stream from. Always curious to know who's lurking and watching me breathe. Netherlands, UK. Eat it. It's like your dinner time or something, right? You skip dinner for me? Sweet. So sweet. She's like, what? I'm eating right now. Get out of here. Get over yourself. Hope if anybody's practicing this with me, hope your pieces are coming out cool. Seems like every time some student posts their work, they got way more done than I did in 2 hours. It's fine. I'm happy that people join along with me and print this stuff, because it's so informative and healthy practice. Because when you get ready to do some fancy monster or something for your concept art or for whatever job you might be working on, having practiced rendering and painting kind of loosens you up, prepares you for what you're about to do. I'll paint much of this guy's face or render out these parts of it as much as I can today. Then I will finish this up next week. I don't want to rush it. I just want to take my time and have some fun with it. Plus, it's really only 2 hours, so I spend 4 hours rendering. That's not bad. Sometimes when you're painting something, it helps to step back a little bit. Walk away from your piece, come back in an hour, look at it with fresh eyes. You might be able to see things you thought were okay that are actually wrong, or you'll be able to see things that you might have missed. So that's why I'm saying, like, I don't want to rush through it. I just want to do it right. Play with the opacity here. Try to build this up more translucent color. See all of these different shifts in the skin tone and the head. How long do you stay in your office every day? Not long enough. Not, not long enough. Maybe, I mean, I go upstairs. I gotta acknowledge that I'm not alone in my house. I gotta feed the kids and interact with people, but I'm usually in this room for anywhere from 5 to 10 hours. And I also do a lot of freelance stuff in the evenings after everybody goes to bed, like different book covers and magic cards and that. So like I need to be able to focus while everybody else is asleep. But yeah, the short answer is not enough. There's never enough time. Even if you're alone in your house, nothing else, no other distractions or responsibility. Never seems to be enough. So, yeah. So 99% of this has all been painted with one paintbrush. I don't get fancy with texture brushes and get all excited about whatever concept artist that's sharing their stuff on ArtStation. You know, I could do this whole thing with a simple round brush if I wanted. I'm just really in love with this one because it gives me stroke like I would get with a regular paint brush. Like that's a flat. I love that. I feel like I want to start incorporating that into my professional work. Get more of a painterly effect with it. But for some things, a good old-fashioned round can't be beat. And some highlights on the face. So when it comes to doing highlights, I don't try to get fancy, I just scribble it in. Because nobody's ever going to be looking at this at 100% zoom. So like when you get in on this real quick, you can see just how brushy that is. I can come in and I can soften that, blend that highlight with surrounding cool, just making like little X shapes, dabbing at it. And the thing I'm careful about is that I'm trying to make this guy's face look real, or as real as I can, and not like I'm slavishly copying reference sculpture, which would be bad because it's not completely 100% accurate. Like I'm saying, it's just a lighting reference or a painting. So there's going to be stuff as far as the nostrils, parts of the jaw off actual photo reference. This is where doing those portrait exercises comes in handy, knowing what the human face looks like, knowing where highlights on the should be. right now. Just dropping in the bridge of the nose. Yeah, that stuff is really fun to paint. All of the taking a moment to paint in all the little highlights and stuff, making that stuff sing. It's so satisfying. So much. I'm gonna carve out shape of that burnt skin flap, not with additional dark values, but with by popping out the highlight. That's it. Drop in the highlights underneath the eye. These little subtle things, so fun to do. Blah, blah. This is just a round brush. Scribbling it in. So, like, this whole piece could have been done with a round. Doesn't matter. It's what you do with the brush and what your settings are. I've said that in this stream before, and I'll just keep saying it. Yeah, and hey Jiggy, like that base color that I put in here, that that also does a lot of work for me too. So if I turn that off, I turn this back on, you can see just how much of it is opaque. And this off, you can really see how much of it is opaque paint. Like that eye is almost just solid painted on one layer, and then you can see that background value showing through the edges of the nose and stuff like that for right now. But I let the layers do some of the work for me, and that background gray is so helpful because that shines through a lot of what I'm doing, and that base layer does the rest. So, I'm not opposed to painting on different layers, but what some students what ends up happening with some students is they get into a groove and then they forget what layer they're on, right? And or they start drawing out their stuff and then they paint directly over their line drawing. Lose everything. So if it ever came down to asking a student to remove a tattoo off of the skin or take a gun out of their hand of their design or something like that, they can't because it's all baked in. So I try to think about that build up and you know, acknowledging the fact that this is digital, so I can get away with having stuff on multiple layers. I mean, I know some traditional sci-fi fantasy illustrators that do digital painting, but they refuse to paint on more than one, maybe 3 tops. And I just think that's just ridiculous. Why even do it then? You're not going to take advantage of the program. Let it do what it can do for you. This is a lot of fun. Sit here. Yeah. So what I end up sometimes doing, and I learned this tip from when I used to work in advertising, because you could be working on something and then run out of time, and that whatever you're working on would have to be passed on. I mean, this could happen in any studio environment, but what you're working on would have to be passed on to another person. You could work on something else. You right click on your layer, you just change, you can color code stuff. So if it's a layer that I'm actively working on or that is important, like the zombie line, if I don't read the layer, I will at least know that any layer in my stack that is red, I do not touch. So if I find myself working on that red layer, then you know, you could freak out. But you can also lock layers too. You know, so that way if you ever were to try, you get a little warning. So color coding it and locking it, any layer that you're not actively using or don't want to use, I would suggest just making it red and locking it. That's the best way to avoid any potential accidents along the way. So as I go, I'm gonna take some license with the colors and stuff like that in the forehead. Really push the idea this is some kind of bloody skull stuff. If anybody has any questions um, about anything art related, please let me know. My best to answer questions. Um, Brett Sullivan is asking that away so I can see his question. Do you still do much analog drawing? If so, do you think it is helpful as working purely digital for keeping eye in shape? I yes, I do a lot of uh, traditional drawing and portraiture. I've got an oil portrait of my daughter sitting on my easel right now. Um, I do, for some clients, I do the work exclusively in oil paint just so that I don't forget how to do it. Because that's where my mind is at when I'm doing this. I'm trying to treat this. I treat this as close to working traditionally as possible, um, without the drying time or the mediums and all that stuff, using an oil paint. Um, but another reason I also do a lot of analog or traditional drawing and painting is because there's a huge aftermarket for um, a lot of commercial illustration, depending on the client, depending on what it is that you're doing. So, um, you might get paid a few $1,000s for a job that somebody wants for their book cover or something, trading card. But then there's a collector somewhere waiting to buy that original painting, or sometimes upwards of 5 times what you were originally contracted to do the job. So at the end of the day, you could have one oil painting, pay out like $8,000 to $20,000, and you'll never get that doing the work digitally. You might be able to sell a couple of prints, um, sell an original line drawing if you have that. If you're going to work digitally, you do your drawing traditionally, scan it, paint over that. Selling the original drawing is also a additional revenue stream, but some people are just purely digital. I did the entire thing on my Cintiq. Like, well, that's great, and they don't care about the aftermarket. That's fine as well. Just about what you want to. Yes. Short answer. Yes. Trying not to get caught up in all of the specular stuff and details right now and just continue blocking in form. I mean, I could be sitting here rendering out another eye, but there's so much. There's still so much to do on this that there's no way that I'm going to get this all done. No way I was going to get this done in 2 hours, but I know the school has given me permission to extend my stream by an hour if I wanted to, every once in a while. But I think I would save that for doing like a traditional paint, the oil demo or something like that. Right now I just have to get the right equipment and have a better understanding of this. Figure out how many cameras I need, palette, easel, then one on me. That's how it would go. Brett is saying, I never considered an aftermarket. Yeah. So, like, think of it like if there's fans, there's Marvel Comics fans, there's fantasy art fans that are doctors, lawyers. You know, they have good jobs and they have disposable income. And somebody is out there sitting at home scrolling through Instagram or whatever, and they just have 5-10 grand a year just to blow on original art. So always cool to be thinking about, or just be aware that those kind of people exist. Hopefully you make something that appeals to them and want it hanging on their wall. Blah blah. Scribble this eye, secondary eye together. I don't know why I'm making vampire sounds. This is where it's going to deviate from reference because really, I don't think I painted the second eye. Not sure where I want that eye to be looking, honestly. I want, I don't know, it kind of takes away the intimidation factor or the crazy, scary. I don't know if this is really scary. This isn't scary, but kind of takes away the seriousness of it if he's got googly eyes. So, I don't know, I have one eye looking right at you. Blah. And this is where painting eyes comes in handy, having that practice. Like in past streams that we've done, or that you might have done with me, we're doing pieces of the whole, rendering an eye or a nose or something like that. And if you're new and you haven't seen those, you can go back into archives on YouTube, see all of the different illustration streams where we talk about that. But so that's going to have an eyelid under. Highlight. That out. Just continue carving away at the bag under the eye. I should save that. There you go. Oh boy. That wetness going. Doing stuff like this is so relaxing. Always also great great practice for seeing color and value, that jazz. about the eye. So the whites of the eye, in this case, would not be gray or a white or anything like that. It would take on the color of the light source hitting the face. And the side of the eye that's turning away from that light, a little cooler. So you can very quickly get into color shifts and stuff like that. Easy peasy eye, quick. It doesn't. Whatever. Soft edge on that eye. Going. This color. Left it light. Blah, blah. I don't know what a robot zombie is supposed to say. I don't know. Grr, arg. So that's where I'm going to leave it for today. I will next week block in the rest of the head and face, and then continue painting all the chunky bits. And I think I'll play with the idea of there being like a tooth just hanging. Oh, I could do a tooth. I'm gonna put a note. Tooth. Just have a random tooth just stuck all up in those bloody gums. A nice glistening look I like. Ew. Bloody gums. Snaggletooth, good. Alright, that's that's where I'm gonna leave it. This was fun. Fun for me at least. I don't know about you, but so thank you for all of those that hung in there with me to see this through. If you're a student of CG Spectrum and you gave this a shot, I would love to see what you did. If you feel comfortable sharing it, post it on the General DigiPaint. And otherwise, I will talk to you all next week. Nikita, I want to see yours. Don't even be like, oh, I didn't have time. Nope. I want to see it. All right. Just wrap it up, finish it, whatever. Spend however long you want, and I want to see it. Okay? Because if we're gonna paint a dead face, this is a dead face. All right. Specular highlights and everything. Big difference. All right. Take care.